Hello and welcome to another An Old Man Watches, and today I'm going to be talking about Under the Mountain, both the 1981 and 2009 adaptations. So Under the Mountain was originally a 1979 novel by New Zealand author Maurice G, and then in 1981 TV New Zealand made an 8-part serial based on the book, and then in 2009 a New Zealand feature film was made based on the book. Obviously, there are going to be similarities and differences between the two. Broadly speaking, though, they both have the same plot with specifics that change. And the plot is essentially this, that as toddlers, twin siblings Theo and Rachel meet a kindly old man who helps them when they're in trouble. And then years later, they travel to Auckland to stay with relatives. And once there, they discover that they have a role to play in an aeons-old extraterrestrial conflict. Evil slug-like aliens have come to Earth with nefarious intent. The specifics of what that intent are different between the two adaptations, but in both cases it's bad news for humanity, so we want them stopped. Fortunately, the old man that they met as toddlers is also an alien, but a much more benevolent one. And he seeks to help them unlock the full potential of the psychic bond they share, because only by embracing those powers can they thwart the slug aliens' plans. So that's, in broad terms, what's going on here in both cases. Now, obviously, two adaptations that are made nearly 40 years apart are going to be different, especially when one is a movie and one is an 8-part serial. But there's some interesting things to talk about in how and why they're different, how and why they're the same, what's going on in both versions. So let's talk about that. So number one, I think a big thing that is probably a difference between the two is that one is pre-Harry Potter and one is post-Harry Potter. Now, obviously, the famous wizard is not referenced in either version. Couldn't be in 1981, shouldn't be in 2009 because you probably get sued. But the success of Teens with Secret Magical Powers as a major money-spinning franchise in between the two, probably a factor in the film getting made, possibly a factor in some of the decisions about the casting and other elements of the story. Theo and Rachel are older in the movie than they are in the 1981 miniseries, and they begin the film with much more awareness of their own psychic abilities. Now, aging the characters up could also have been the fact that it's nearly 40 years later. I feel like, the 10 to 12-year-old kids that we see in the original wouldn't have the same kind of freedom to roam around and get up to stuff in 2009 that the 1981 series relies on them having. And probably, if they spend a lot of time hanging around with a much older man who isn't related to them at that age, that's also going to attract more attention today, or in 2009, than it may have done in the early 80s. So there's also, some cultural change there. But I feel like, why did the 2009 movie get made? Well, Harry Potter was possibly a factor. Something that both adaptations share, though it's explored in different ways, is this concept of a storyline element of cynicism versus belief. The protagonists have to overcome their own cynicism, their own lack of belief. In the 81 version, Theo struggles to master his psychic abilities because he finds it hard to believe in supernatural powers in general and in the idea that he has such powers in particular. Meanwhile, in the 2009 film, the long conflict with the slug aliens and an earlier failed attempt to help humans defeat them has left the good alien cynical about humanity and our capacity to do what needs to be done, and he has to overcome that and trust in the twins in order to help them. So it's a theme that's explored in both. As an aside, I'm not comfortable with the idea that questioning things is bad and not taking things at face value is bad necessarily. I think examination of the facts and careful consideration is an important thing, and that media in general tends to misrepresent a desire for evidence as merely another kind of belief. Like in 1981, Theo continues to not believe in the supernatural despite extensive evidence to the contrary. That's not rational. That's not, that's emotional. It's belief-based. I don't believe in the supernatural. I have a belief the supernatural is not real, rather than, I have evidence the supernatural is not real. So I think the 2009 film does this a little bit better, because the alien mentor, his lack of faith in humanity is at least based on previous experience. So That's an aside. But there, it's a similar theme. It's definitely a theme that they both share, and that they both explore, though in different ways. And the final thing that I want to talk about, Deus Ex Mentor. So, in the 1981 serial, the kindly alien is really powerful. He's regularly able to save the kids from danger. On the other hand, he's also strangely reticent to tell them what's going on. Now, I think that there are probably some real-world, out-of-fiction reasons for that. The writers wanted to maintain the mystery. They wanted to let the kids blunder into stuff that they wouldn't do if they were properly informed, which is not necessarily good writing, because, generally speaking, it's a bad idea to have your characters act in the ways that you want them to for reasons that don't exist within the fiction, that exist outside the fiction. But what it means is that both of those traits make the mentor alien a key narrative figure in the story. He's driving events, either by using his powers to save the day, or by putting the day in danger in the first place, because he hasn't told people stuff. The film version of the character is both less powerful and more willing to share information. I think this is one of the best decisions that the film makes. It creates more tension and a more immersive experience when the good guys seem overmatched and overpowered, and they have to rely on cleverness and courage to prevail. So I think that's a good decision that the film makes. Now, it may sound from my comments like I think the film is better than the series, but I actually like them both. The 1981 version is very clearly a product of its time and its structure. It's much like a Doctor Who serial of the same era, but it's an enjoyable kids show. The film has its flaws as well. Its climax is a little bit underwhelming, for instance, but it's mostly a solidly entertaining teen adventure movie. They're both, if this kind of thing is your kind of media, they're probably worth looking up. I enjoyed them both, and you may too if it's your kind of thing. So that was Under the Mountain, both versions. Next time, a film I didn't enjoy, Italian film from 1971. The Devil Has Seven Faces, or The Devil with Seven Faces, depending on exactly how you translate the title. Find out why I hated it in the next video. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one, and I hope you enjoyed it.